So what would happen if you stop trying right now? We're always trying, aren't we? We're always trying to get something, get somewhere, trying to make more money, trying to have better relationships, trying to find a partner, trying to get a raise, get a better job, trying to open up a business, trying to get healthier. And we spend our lives trying all the time. And what would happen if you just stopped juggling all these balls are up in the air? Because now we want to have everything, don't we? We want to have the money, we want to have the success, we want to have the fame. Some people do, some people don't. But we seem to want to have it all because when we look around, there is a lot of people who look like they do have it all, right? But so you're juggling all these balls up in the air. So what if you were to stop? What would happen? Or what do you think would happen? Do you think that your life would fall apart? You'd become destitute, broke, your business would collapse, your partner would leave, your health would deteriorate if you stopped trying. Here's the thing about trying. Trying is what's actually keeping you stuck. I'm all about wealth, success, health, the kind of the things that I live for. However, something major shifted for me when I discovered that I just didn't have it in me anymore to keep trying. I was very successful early on. At the age of 19, I got into business. I was in the hair and beauty industry, and it was amazing. I worked really hard. I seemed to have lots of energy back then, worked really hard, did really well, tried really, really hard to do everything right. With my businesses, with my partner. Then I got married, had children, and I just kept trying and was doing everything great on the outside, very successful, right? Everything was working, and that's what life's about, isn't it? To actually have success, great marriage, children, great wealth, health, all of that. And then one day, it all shifted and it all changed. And all of a sudden, I was back to where I started. My marriage was gone. I had two little babies, and the businesses were gone. Everything was gone. Husband's gone. Everything's gone. And I had to start again. And then the trying became very, very, very hard for me. It was so challenging to get up every day and think about the magnitude of work that I have to do just to get myself back to where I was. So I had to, buy a new house. I had to renovate that house. I had to open up a new business. I had to, expand that business, get it to a profitable state. I had to make sure, my kids are in childcare. I had to get them to childcare. I had to cook. I had to clean. I had to do this. I had to do that. I was juggling like a million and one balls. And I kept thinking to myself, well, I know how to do this. I've done this before. I've created this successful business. I've renovated houses before. I know how to do this. But somehow this time it just felt so heavy and hard. And every day felt harder and harder, like I had more weight on me even though I felt like I'd accomplished 1,000 things the day before. I just felt like there was more and more weight on me. Until one day, I was always into personal development, by the way. Like since the age of about 21, I discovered um, personal development and I was all over it. But for my business, I used everything that I learned and I applied it into business, and lo and behold, it worked. And I never thought of personal development about in the way of thinking about it for me. I thought about it for success, for business, for what I was going to get. Anyway, and so fast forward when I just felt like I just didn't have it in me anymore to keep trying. And I thought, well, I can't stop. Like this is it. This is my lot in life. What would happen if I stop? Well, everything would fall apart and, I'd be out, God knows what would happen. I'd be out on the street or whatever. So I picked up a book and I started reading a self-help book. And it was the first time that I read from my point of view of helping me. not for any other reason, not to get anything, not to gain anything, not to become richer, more successful, not as a strategy. It was like therapy. And what I realized was that through that book and then reading lots and lots of self-help books, personal development, spiritual stuff, neuroscience, quantum physics. I started getting into all of it, listening to all the gurus out there talk about that stuff and all the top leading experts in that. I realized that I was not the same person that I used to be. The thing that I went through, my divorce, breaking up, and all those things had actually changed me. And what had happened was I shifted into a different identity. And that identity was coming from a place of lack. It was coming from a place of uncertainty. It was coming from pure survival. And so when you wake up every day and you're in this survival mode and you think that you have to do things so that you can survive, that can be a really exhausting existence because you're constantly in a heightened flight, fight, or freeze mood, right? You're constantly thinking about, what's going to happen, what's going to come at you, and you have to manage all these things just so you can keep getting ahead so that you will feel safe, you will feel all those things, you will feel security, and you'll feel all those things that are important to you. So once people get past that stage and they start reaching some of these milestones, they no longer, they kind of settle a bit and they're no longer doing it for survival and purely to be safe and have certainty. What happens is now they're doing it because they want to feel something else. They want to feel happiness. They want to feel successful. They want to feel wealthy. And they feel that they have to constantly keep getting something to actually feel a certain way. So you've heard it before, people say, I want to, when I get this business and it's successful, I will feel free. When I lose 10 kilos, I will feel healthy, and I will feel happy. I will feel good about myself. So when you say you want to lose some weight or when you say you want to make more money, the problem with that is it's like going north. How long can you go north for? You can just keep going north and keep going north and keep going north and keep going. And you kind of, every step you take, it's a little bit north, isn't it? If you're in that direction. And so how long do you have to go until you feel happy? So you might say, all right, you might have a definite goal and say, all right, I will feel happy when I make my first $1 million. When you make your first million, you work really hard, you get there, you make your first million, and then the interesting thing is that you feel happy for a little bit, and then you have to get on with it, right? You've got that million, you've made your first million. Often you don't even realize straight away. It's not like these bells and whistles go off, right? It just kind of happens. And when you stop for a second, what you're doing and your busy work, you realize, oh, well, I've made my first million. That's amazing. And then you just get on with it. And you might feel good for a minute, you might feel good for an hour, you might feel good for a week, you might even shout yourself something, buy yourself something really nice as a gesture of like, I made it. But then what? It doesn't last. And then you go, okay, well, now I have to make 2 million or now I have to make 5 million. That's the same with weight. People think that when they lose 5 kilos, they're going to be happy. But they lose the 5 kilos, then what? They're happy for a minute when they step on the scales, but not all that much changes. And definitely they don't have this never-ending flow of happiness and confidence and joy because they're 5 kilos lighter. There's no validation, no one cares, right? So what is the secret? So definitely trying harder, and keep getting something and going for something and trying to achieve something and getting to the next level and the next level and the next level is definitely not the answer. So what is the answer? So after a lot of painstaking, soul-searching study, what I realized was that my life before, I always say my life, there's a before and there's an after, before divorce, after divorce. I always say that life before, I was just on this trajectory where sooner or later, regardless if I got divorced or not, the wheels would have fallen off because I was constantly chasing a feeling. And I was convinced that as long as I keep doing more and getting more and being more, then I will eventually, be happy. And then what I realized is it came sooner rather than later that the wheels fell off. And then I realized that that just wasn't sustainable. Trying harder is not the answer to happiness, to success, to wealth, to health. Trying harder is not the answer. So what is the answer? I realized that I didn't really have to go anywhere, do anything, try harder, get anything. I was already there. The moment you realize that to actually want health, wealth, success, happiness, joy, all of those things, they are already inside of you. You already are those things. And there is a version of you who already has those things. And when you decide, make that decision to just be rather than chasing it and trying to get somewhere, because the more you chase something, the more further away it sort of feels like it is. The moment you stop and you just be, game changer. So yes, I am all about goal achievement. My whole Mind State Method program is about creating a vision, extracting a goal. But then before we implement any strategy, we first work on identity. So I take you out of lack, limitation, and survival, and we put you in the identity of already being, whatever it is that you want. Health, success, love, freedom, joy, significance, money, whatever it is for you. When you first feel that and you believe that you are that and you act from that place and everything you do is from there, you don't have to actually go anywhere to get anything. You actually attract it to you. It's like it collapses into your lap. Because at the end of the day, we never really get to a future, and every moment is now the past, right? So we only ever have this moment. So in being the person that you think you will be and feeling the way you want to feel when you get somewhere, rather than chasing that, but actually being that now, making the decision and figuring out what that is for you, and then taking every single moment, every action from that place, making every choice from the person that you are being, you actually bring the vision to you. So if you want to have more money, you need to be wealthy. What does wealth look like to you? If you were wealthy, who would you be? Right? If you were wealth, if you were success, if you were love, if you were health, who would you be? What does health look like to you? Well, be that. In every moment, choose health, choose wealth. What would I'm sure there's a vision that you've got of, oh, when I make this much money, this is what I'm going to do, right? This is how I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to act, right? Now, maybe your bank account doesn't have the money to go and spend like someone like that. But I'm telling you right now, there is this magic in acting like that from now. This is not just pretend. This is not pretending. This is holding the essence of you as a wealthy person. You don't need money in your account to validate that you are wealthy. You don't need like significance on social media or anywhere to validate that you are successful and that you are important and that you are worthy. You can choose all those things straight away and act from that place. So think about every moment. Think about today, what you did. Every moment, how did you show up today? Were you someone chasing wealth, chasing love, chasing health? Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I've got to go to the gym. Yeah, I've got to eat this. Yeah, I've got to do that. And most of the time, the more we try, we don't really do much at all. We think we're doing so much because it's more in our head. We keep thinking, yeah, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got to, yeah, and I've got to try lose some weight and I've got to, try and make more money and I've got to try this and I've got to try that. When in actual fact, all we're doing is just overthinking a whole bunch of stuff and we're not really moving. We're not really acting or taking action. When you're working from an identity that already is, you move very differently. You act very differently. The choices are very different. You stop chasing and you start attracting. So a really good example is just, let's say if you're in the business, you have a product or service. If you were already successful and you already were wealth, what is wealth? What is wealth? So let's say you're making lots of money in your business. What would that mean? To me, if I'm making lots of money in my business, that means I'm making lots of sales. Well, what does it take to make lots of sales? To make lots of sales, you have to bring value to people, right? In that product or service that you're selling, there has to be value that you are giving to somebody. And that's why they're going to buy from you, whether it's a product or a service. So if you really thought, if you were wealth and you were success, that means that you believe that your product, your service is of value, is of immense value that you are offering to the world. So what you are offering has so much value that people are buying. So therefore you're successful. So if that's the way you thought, how then would you go into the world today to sell your product and service? How would you show up? How would you be making your offer of your product or your service if you truly believe that what you are offering is of the highest value to these people, to whoever your clients or customers are? How would you do it differently to how you're doing it now? So when you're going out now and you want to sell, you are prospecting, you are, trying to get leads. It's all about you making sales, making money, and keeping everything afloat, right? And, hopefully you're going to make X amount of sales, you can make X amount of money and do X amount of things. But when you're already successful and you already feel wealthy and you already have the money, that is validation that what you have, that product or service, is worthy. It's valuable. And then when you know something is valuable, it's so easy to offer it because you already know what it's going to do for that customer or that client. So try that today and see what happens. Everything that I do is always coming from your identity and your mindset first, because strategies are amazing, but if they're coming from a mindset that is in lack or limitation, you'll get a very different outcome because it'll be coming from a very different energy, a very different vibration than someone that's coming from, abundance, success, and wealth. So if you're interested in learning more, please give me a like, give me a follow, share, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I just spoke about. And you can also check us out in our links below. And I'll see you soon. Bye.